We're going to jump kind of straight into it this evening. Numbers chapter 16. We got a great couple of chapters for us in store. There's lots of application to be made. I think it's one of the bigger, when it comes to application in the book of Numbers, I think the two chapters that we're going to be looking at tonight are right at the top of that. Of course, I think that just like every Wednesday, like, no, this is the one, this has got the application. But there's great stuff for us. But again, the question here is about Moses and his, there's a confrontation when it comes to people accepting leadership. And that is coming into focus again. It's happened before, primarily with Miriam questioning that leadership. This time, the questioning of leadership is focused on Aaron and the priesthood. And so the first thing that we're going to see here in the first couple of verses is the rebels' discontentment. Verse 1, Numbers chapter 16. Now, Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath. Remember that name, Kohath, not because, hey, I got to keep that and put it in the baby name book or anything, but just remember that. The son of Levi with Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up, or they stood in opposition to, before Moses with some of the children of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, representatives of the congregation, men of renown. Now, as I said, we're going to be reading about another questioning of leadership. And this time it's still family. It's not Miriam, but it is this guy, primarily Korah. Korah is, as we will see, he's at the center of all of this. And what you might not just notice as we read through those first two verses is that Korah is actually Moses' cousin. Moses also comes from the tribe of Levi. He is a Levite, just like Korah, from that family tree of Levi. Both Korah and Moses are then, as we read here, part of as we branch off in that family tree. I'm going down, but the family tree should go up unless you're like in Arkansas or something, but it should go up. And it forms part of it's from this clan of Kohath. If you're from Arkansas, please forgive me. Okay, let me move on now. Delete that from the recording. Okay. Within that clan of Kohath, Moses, though, was the son of Amram, and Korah is the son, as it says here, of Izhar. Okay? Now, Kohath, and all this is going to be very important into the subject that we're going to be looking at today. Kohath, if you remember his clan back in Numbers chapter 4, when it was their time for the camp of Israel to move out, the Kohathites, that clan, that family was responsible for the holy things. That family had a very high calling when it comes to the things of God. And it very well may be, as he, is obviously a leader among the people. It could be, this is speculation, but it could be that perhaps he was the one responsible for carrying the Ark of the Covenant. He had obviously an important role just as a Kohathite. He's carrying the holy things, the most holy things. And perhaps it's because he already has such a significant calling on his life that perhaps that leads to some of the discontentment in his life that we're going to see as we continue on. Because as we read through this, you kind of get this, why not me type of attitude. We have the same roots. We're from the same family. I'm a Levite too. In fact, I'm from the clan of Kohath. Why are you the guy? Why am I not the guy? I could have done this, Moses, just as easily as you. And this guy, Moses' relative, his cousin, he connects with Dathan, as it says here. There's 4 of these guys. If you note them in that first verse, Korah connects with Dathan and Abiram and another guy named On, N-O, On. These are influential. They're probably charismatic guys. I want you to notice real quick, as we're just going to dissect this a little bit before we move on to help set the context, is look at the last 2 words of verse 1. They took men. Now, notice if you have a New King James Version, the word men is italicized, meaning it's not actually in the original text. In the Hebrew, it's just one word. It's they took. These guys are takers. That's what they're about. They took, period. They took a position of pride. They took their dissatisfaction, they took their discontentment, and instead of taking it to God, they've taken it to these other people to join their rebellion. Now, obviously, they have the implied meaning is, yes, they took, they grabbed, they got these other men involved with their way of thinking. Some way or another, these guys found some listening ears. Oh, there's always listening ears out there, isn't there? You just keep going until you find a pair of ears that'll listen. Well, that's what these guys did. And they found not just anybody, though. They found 250 leaders, representatives. It says men of renown. That's what the folks at the Tower of Babel wanted to be, men of renown. Well, he found just that sort of men. And so Moses, again, his cousin Korah here is the ringleader of this. And these 4, their posse, they rose up in verse 3. It says, and they gathered together against Moses and Aaron and said to them, you take much upon yourselves, for all the congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. On that basis, then, here's their reasoning. Why then do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord? Now, for Aaron is getting a little bit of his own medicine. He's reaping a little bit of what he's sown. He's been on the other end of this envious ministry before. But I think what's interesting is that there's a lot of things interesting in our study tonight. This isn't the interesting thing, and then it's going to be downhill from there. But we get like a clear view of just kind of human nature here within Aaron, because so often we become dissatisfied with, like Aaron was in his ministry at one point, right, with what others wish they had. Others wish they had Aaron's ministry, and he got to the point where he was dissatisfied with it. And when my goal, because we're all called to be ministers and servants of the new covenant, but when our goal, and again, my goal, and I can speak from a lot of personal experience in this, is ministry in and of itself and not the one that we are to minister for. And again, you could take it from someone who knows, who's been there, who's idolized the ministry over the one in whom we minister. It's going to leave you, every time you do that, it's going to leave you in a place of discontentment. But we must point out that the argument that he, and I'm going to say Korah because it's kind of his deal ultimately, the argument doesn't come across as fleshy. It's not simply, I want to be the leader and I could have been you, Moses. There's a spiritual aspect to this. This is a religious argument that he's making. Did you hear what he said? We're all holy. Every single one of us. We're all set apart by God. We're all his people. And there's a truth to that. That's exactly what the Lord said. In Exodus 19, verse 6, he says, you shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And so that premise is true. Yeah, we are here, we're all holy, but they don't all, even though we're all holy, we don't all have the same role and the same function within God's people. And so his argument is, why has God called you to something that he hasn't called me to? And with that kind of discontentment, and again, it's still so prevalent. this isn't just something that took place a long time ago. Look at them, agree with it in principle, and not agree with it like, well, this still practically happens all the time. Oh, I know that that person isn't better than me. I understand that. But how come they have that really good job and I don't? Why does that person have a spouse who seems to whatever you desire in a spouse, and you see it in someone else? And why doesn't my spouse have that? Why do they have a ministry that gets so much attention? How come their life just seems to just flow? Mine is full of ups and downs and hardships, and why is theirs just easy pleasy? Now, I know theologically God loves me as much as them, but how come that's the way? There's a danger. There's a truth to part of that, right? But it's how that truth is applied. And so I think if we boil this down and we just kind of get to the essence of it, it's I'm not in the ministry that I want. My eyes are big and I see something that I desire, and I'm not in the ministry that I want. I know God's not the problem. I'm not about to blame him. There's no way Korah and these 4 men are going to blame God. So I'm not in the ministry that I want. I know God's not the problem. And so it must be something that Moses and Aaron are doing. That's why there's discontentment within me. Again, this is really prevalent, unfortunately, and many or most of us, probably all of us, have been here at one degree or another. But as we'll see and as we know, discontentment in our life usually just doesn't stay at a static line, does it? I'm just discontentment. I'll never be more discontent than I am right now. It just doesn't stay there. The other thing that we know about discontentment is it usually doesn't stay within yourself. It's something, I got to tell someone how discontent I am. And that's where it's already gotten to this point for these guys. And we're warned throughout Scripture about this. Hebrews 12, verse 15 says, looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up. Can you just picture that, this word picture? It's intentionally in a word picture, this root of bitterness, just kind of as a root. Maybe you're on a sidewalk or something, right? And all of a sudden the pavers of the sidewalk get pushed up. That's what kind of bitterness does. It just kind of springs up there and cause many to be defiled. Oh man, that's what bitterness does. That's what discontentment does. And so, again, I know we're a little top heavy here as we're just getting into the first couple verses, but as we'll see, allowing this to spring up not only has terrible consequences to the initiators of this rebellion, not only is it going to have drastic consequences to these 250 men of renown, unfortunately, it springs up and causes damage and defiles those closest to you, including most of the families of these people. And so what cousin Korah here does not understand is that promotion is not something that you do yourself. There's no positioning yourself for leadership in God's economy. You don't jockey for that. It's not, man, if I do really good, then I can get that over that other person. You know, I was just looking up, I'm really into the etymology and the source of words and where they come from. And pro means forward, promote means to advance one's self. You can't advance yourself in ministry if the goal of ministry is to be behind and serve others, which is exactly what Jesus said. That's what the Gentiles do, right? Is they lord over, they get in front and promote. No, we're called to lift up and get others going ahead of us. If we're trying to put ourselves above others in God's economy, it's actually counterproductive. It gets us farther away from what God wants to do in our life. And ultimately what we're doing is trying to do his job. It doesn't come from that. Psalm 75, verses 6 and 7, I know many of you know this. For exaltation, that word is promotion in the King James, comes neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. And that doesn't mean it's coming from the north either, okay? But God is the judge. He puts one down and exalts another. How many of you guys have heard that verse, know that verse at some point? 3 of you? Gosh, more you need to read your Bible. No, I'm just joking. I say that to say I've known that verse for a long, long time. I just didn't believe it. Can we just say that? Like there's verses that we know the truth of them, we just don't believe it here. This is one of those verses. Oh, I can promote. Like I can figure out a way to advance myself. No, it's not Korah's place to put down Moses or Korah's place to exalt himself. That's God's job. Now, we could do a whole workshop and seminar on this, but I briefly want to say 4 ways here in which he attempts self-promotion. Unfortunately, I don't have it on the screen, and I apologize for that. Number 1 is just as we already looked at, his own dissatisfaction. He has already one of, if you think of the camp of Israel, 2 to 3 million people, he has one of the most exalted positions of ministry in the whole camp of Israel as part of the family and the clan of Kohath. But he's dissatisfied with what God has called him to do. He can't find the blessing in where he is. Secondly, is accusation. What he's saying is just, it's flat out false. Moses, you're promoting yourself? Like, if anything, if you've read through the story of Moses, he has shied away from the position that God has called him to. Now, there was a point, 50 years ago here, 40 some years ago at this time in his life, where, yeah, I'm that guy, I'm the man, I'm him, but that is not him anymore. Third, manipulation. He's not approaching Moses one-on-one. This isn't a real concern. Hey, I see how much you're taking on, kind of like Jethro's father. That's not what he's doing. Are you really going beyond what God has called you to do? I'm just concerned because I care about you. Didn't God say that we're all holy? What's that look like? How's that work? There's no humility in any of this. He's not asking. He's campaigning for himself. And then fourth, intimidation. He's implying that everyone obviously feels the same way. Moses, I'm just the middleman here. I'm here, I'm a representative. I'm on behalf of everyone else. But what we all agree is that you've taken on too much. And you've just been heavy-handed, Moses. And again, what makes this whole scene and sets this stage to be so dangerous is that Korah is obviously a dynamic leader, that he's got charisma that people naturally want to follow. And so he was successful at getting all the who's together. But I think what hurt Moses the most is that this is family and it's someone that he did ministry with. If this was, anyone else, but I think that this deeply hurt Moses. Well, we'll see after the rebels' discontentment, we see Moses' dependence. Verse 4, when Moses heard it, he fell on his face. I wish I was more like Moses. Just think and consider what he's heard. There's mixed motives behind this. There's accusations behind it. He knows that. He can see all of it. But I wish I was Moses because there is zero defensiveness. I got to protect my name, protect that. I got to protect my image. People need to understand who I am. There's zero of that. And we see him we're going to see him do it more than once in this chapter. His first response is like, not confront Korah, not to his face, but I'm going to fall on my face. And again, this is why I want to be more like Moses here, because my flesh would much rather get in your face than fall on my own. And I'm pretty sure yours would too. That's just how we're made. I don't want to fall on my face when lies are being told about me. When someone is trying to subvert what God is doing in my life. But he prays first. I'm sure he's praying for instruction. Just he's coming to the Lord with this open-handed humility and like, Lord, is this true? Is there, how do I proceed? What do I do with this? And so he's got this open-heartedness to the Lord. He hears from the Lord, obviously in verse 5. And he spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, tomorrow morning the Lord will show who is his, I think that's interesting, and who is holy, and will cause him to come near to him, capital H, him. That one whom he chooses, he will cause to come near to him. Do this, verse 6, take censers, Korah and all your company, put fire in them and put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord chooses is the Holy One. Notice what he says next. You take too much upon yourselves, you sons of Levi. I don't know how long verse 4 lasted. I don't know if it was instantaneous or that moment. If Korah just watched that, what's he doing, falling on his face? I don't know. But after that prayer, he got clear instruction from the Lord. And we're going to do this censor standoff to settle this. Now, censers, these are these little metal pots the priest would use to burn incense, up to the Lord. If you remember, maybe you could write this in your margins. In Leviticus chapter 10, if you remember, Nadab and Abihu, they offered strange fire. And what happened to them? Anybody? They what?
Up in smoke.
Up in smoke. Fired on the spot. They died. Moses, that wasn't all that long ago. He's saying, let's revisit that. Let's see who's offering the unauthorized incense. Because Moses he's saying ministry isn't taken or seized, it's revealed. And God will reveal that. And the Lord's going to settle this. And then I love again that he just says, you're the one. You think I've heard from the Lord. I've humbly went to the Lord. And one of the things he showed me is that you've taken too many things on, you sons of Levi. You've already got a calling that you're despising. Now, third, we see Moses here calling out the rebels' dissatisfaction. Verse 8, Moses said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it a small thing? Is it a small thing? Is it just a tiny thing? Is it minuscule to you? Is it just a small thing to you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the work of the tabernacle of the Lord and to stand before the congregation to serve them? And is it still a small thing to you that he's brought you near to himself? You and all your brethren, the sons of Levi with you. And are you seeking or desiring the priesthood also? Is it a small thing that God has chosen to use you in such a unique and powerful way? Is it a small thing to you? Is it insignificant to you that he has a calling on your life to serve these people? What he's calling out is, Korah, you have despised the ministry, the service, this calling that God has for you. You're not only questioning God's calling in my life, you're despising your own. God's called you to serve with these guys, to serve before the people. But you want a different position? That's just not enough for you in this incredible way that God has uniquely and specifically called you? So Moses understands this isn't about equality or holiness. We're all holy. He understands. This is about dissatisfaction in what God has called you to do, in the position that he has for you. Therefore, verse 11, you and all your company are gathered together against the Lord. He's calling him on the carpet. Me, Aaron, we're not your problem. No. Your problem is with the Lord. You think Korah, Dathan, Abiram, on. You think you're complaining about me and my ministry, but you're really complaining about God and your ministry. That's what you're complaining about. You're not complaining about my ministry. You're complaining about yours. And he says, and it goes on to say, and what is Aaron? You complain about him. Like, this isn't even about Aaron. This has nothing to do with him. But I do appreciate that Moses, whose own leadership was questioned by Aaron not all that many chapters ago, here he defends him. But he's like, this, what is Aaron that you complain against him? And Moses, verse 12, sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, we will not come up. Okay, I want you to notice this. There is a heart of, we've already seen it, but this heart of refusal and rebellion that abides within these guys, because these are part of the very ones who said, we will not go in, we will not go up into the land, Lord, that you are taking us. Should we go in? Caleb and Joshua, let's go. But all the congregation said, we will not go up. We will not go in. And now there's a refusal not even to go the direction that God has for them, but there's a refusal to follow the Lord regarding their own ministry. This has become personal. Lord, I'm not going to go the way that you have. I'm not going to come up. We're not doing what you say. Because we're not done criticizing you. Check this out. Is it a small thing? Oh, let's return this small thing. You think you're criticizing me, Moses? They say, is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey? To kill us in the wilderness. That's your evil plan all along, Moses. We had it so good that you should keep acting like a prince over us. Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor giving us inheritance of fields and vineyards. And then I don't know where this comes from. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. Oh man, we used to be in that place. You didn't bring us to that place. You brought us from that place. We had it so good before you came along, Moses. Oh man, life was just schmoozy, easy. And I don't think that they're just trying to get a reaction. That's what's really scary about this. I don't think they're trying to be rude. Now, sure, they have a desire for leadership, and that's going to cause you to skew the facts. But I really think they believe that going back where they came from is a good thing. And they're changing history in their own minds. What do we call that? We have a term for that. Selective memory. Oh man, it used to be so carefree back then. Smoking up, getting drunk, sleeping around, getting in fights. Oh man, it's just the best. Things are so good. Running from the cops. I know Stephen, I can't mention cops, no, I'm just joking. But he mentioned, I think in passing, like he's always like super respected police officers, even when he was being arrested, you know. I remember running from the cops, literally, like I went down this creek bed and ran. I'm in full clothes, running through a creek until they said, no, give up. Ah, those are the good old days. Come on. But don't we do that? Don't we look back with a little bit of glory on how things used to be? Turn to Hebrews chapter 11, if you would. When it comes to God's direction and promises for our life, we have two responses: faith and fear. When he gives us direction, when he gives us a promise, there's a response. And that response that each of us are going to have is faith or fear. Having faith, trusting God, changes your perspective, your prospect, I'll put it that way, your prospect of the future, which changes your perspective of your current reality. Now look with me, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance, the foundation, the sureness. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, future things. Okay? Things are hoped for are always in the future. The evidence or the confidence of things not seen. Okay? Faith looks forward with hope and confidence. That's what faith does in response to the promises and the direction of the Lord. But if we turn this verse around a little bit and we replace faith with fear, if we were to read this over again, fear is the doubt of things hoped for and the uneasiness of the future and things unseen. Okay? So faith about the future changes your perspective of where you are right now. If I know God's good, He's got a good plan for my life, He's not trying to destroy me, that's going to change my perspective about where I am right now. We saw that clearly in chapter 14, right? Behind all, the opposite of that, we saw in chapter 14 that behind all the excuses we can't go in, they're strong inhabitants, they're huge, and we're tiny and all of that. Behind that is just fear. They didn't trust God. There wasn't faith there, a lack of trusting faith in what God had for them. And now what we see here in chapter 16, if faith changes your perspective about where you are right now, it seems here that the opposite is true as well. Fear changes your perspective of your current reality. Their discontentment, their fear, their complaining about their present situation, it changes their view, and now the past doesn't seem so bad. And they've forgotten the 400 years of whips and taskmasters and mortar and all of those things. They're despising Moses, who actually God used to free them. None of it makes sense. Now, Moses' response says in verse 15, Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, nor have I hurt one of them." I've never taken a donkey from anybody either. I'm just saying. He knows he hasn't done anything to warrant this. He can see through it, in other words. I know that all of this is a facade, and he's angry. Man, are we going to see, understandably angry, right? But we're going to see he still loves these guys. Remarkably, he still wants the best for them. He's still not, necessarily trying to defend himself to them. And so he says, "Lord, this is up to you. My conscience is clear. I haven't harmed one of these guys. I've never taken anything from them." And so with this clear conscience, he says, man, this is God's decision. Verse 16, Moses said to Korah, "Tomorrow you and all your company be present before the Lord, you and they as well as Aaron. Let each take a censer and put incense in it, and each of you bring his censer before the Lord. 250 censers, both you and Aaron, each with his censer." You got it? Everybody's supposed to have their own. "So every man," verse 18, "took his censer, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and stood at the door of the tabernacle of meeting with Moses and Aaron." Verse 19, "And Korah gathered all the congregation against them at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation, and the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how is it? They're all there. In a still small voice, I don't know. But he told them, separate yourselves from among the congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. Not separate here. He's not saying separate from Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, but separate from the congregation. You know how when you're taking a picture and you're like, can you just move just a little to the left? That's like what the Lord is doing here. Like, I'm going to wipe all these guys out. So just a smidge that way and you should be fine. But then again, look at this. Moses, love this leadership. They, Moses and Aaron, fell on their faces and said, "Oh God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin and you be angry with all the congregation?" God says, "Step aside. Let me take these guys out." But both Moses and Aaron praying for the people they know are the problem. Oh, no, it's really Korah is at the bottom of all this, and he's got all these other guys. And this is the heart of Jesus. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Man, Moses has that. Now, Aaron's growing in his leadership, and he's gotten to this point. And so Moses, he's not oblivious what they're all up to, but he knows that, man, this is a Korah thing. And the Lord says, well, it's not just Korah that needs to be dealt with. Verse 23, so the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the congregation then, saying, get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Then Moses rose and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. These are the elders selected back in chapter 10, guys with the same spirit, the same vision as him. Verse 26, and he spoke to the congregation, saying, "Depart now from the tents of these wicked men. Touch nothing of theirs, lest you be consumed in all their sins." This is still good advice. Get away from wicked men. That's pretty straightforward, pretty simple though. And maybe someone here tonight needs to hear that. Get away from wicked men. Don't get caught up in what they're involved in. Don't get caught up in their envy, their divisiveness, their slander. If you get too close to it, it's going to consume you. Their sin is going to consume you. What is 1 Corinthians, I believe, bad company corrupts good character. Oh, how many times I've seen that bore out to be true. Paul said in Romans 16, "Now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which you learned, and avoid them. For those who are such do not serve our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, their own flesh. And by smooth words and flattering speech deceive the hearts of the simple. For your obedience has become known to all. Therefore, I'm glad on your behalf, but I want you to be wise in what is good and simple or dumb concerning evil." Well, the congregation here is wise to listen to Moses. It spared them. They got away, verse 27, from around the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the door of their tents with their wives, their sons, and their little children. Now, this is interesting. A couple things I'm going to point out to you here. There was a fourth guy that was mentioned back in verse 1. You guys remember that guy? His name was what? On. Yeah. He's nearly not mentioned again. And for that very reason, I think he's someone that we can learn a lesson from. Somewhere along the way, because he was caught up right in the middle of this. He was an instigator right there with them. But somewhere along the way, he said, "My name is On, but I'm getting off of this rebellion thing. I ain't doing it. I'm turning my back to this. I was going one way, and I had this rebellious, selfish attitude, and I'm calling myself out. And I did that, and my name is On, N-O-N. But man, my response to this is N-O. Nope, I'm going to turn this thing around. N-O, not going to do it." There's a hidden lesson there. Now, something else here that I want you to just hold on to, and we're going to address again in just a minute. So this man named On is off the scene, and we have these three main rebels left: Korah, the ringleader, then Dathan and Abiram. Korah is the main guy. But who does it say in this text that we just read? Who does it say specifically came out with their wives, their sons, and their children? Dathan and Abiram. It does not say Korah. And I want you to just hang on to that a minute. Okay? Verse 28. And Moses said, by this you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own will. So Moses spends time with the Lord. He says, I didn't jockey for this job. I didn't promote myself. I didn't presume this place of leadership. In fact, I told God I didn't want to do this. I told God that if he loved me, he would kill me at one point. This is God's idea. He's calling the shots. And he says, verse 29, if these men die naturally, like all men, or if they're visited by the common fate of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates a new thing, and what a thing it is, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the pit, then you'll understand that these men have rejected the Lord. If this happens, if God invents a whole new way of disposing of people, a whole new method of judgment, something I could never arrange, well, that's going to be proof that this is God's decision. Well, verse 31, we see the rebels' destruction. Now it came to pass as they finished speaking all these words, it almost makes it sound immediately like that sound wave was still in the air and the ground split. I tried to picture this today. It's just radical. The ground split apart under them, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the men with Korah and all their goods. So they and all those with them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed over them, and they perished from among the assembly. Wow. Every once in a while, I'll see a video, maybe you've seen it too, like this car. I just saw one a couple weeks ago, a car sitting at a stoplight, and all of a sudden this sinkhole, right? Just like it was so freaky. But then to have it close back up over you, oh my gosh, that's a new thing right there. Okay, now, here's what I want you to see. Turn to Numbers 26, just a couple chapters to the right. We really got to speed up. This is the end of the story. He got off this train. But this is the end of the story for Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, but it's not the end of the story. Look at Numbers 26. Look down with me. Verse 9. The sons of Eliab, we've already read about this guy, were Nemuel, Dathan, and Abiram. These are the Dathan and Abiram representatives of the congregation who contended against Moses and Aaron in the company of Korah when they contended, actually, against the Lord. We just read what happened. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah when that company died, when the fire devoured. We're going to read this in a little bit. 250 men, and they became a sign. Nevertheless, the children of Korah did not die. They were not destined to be rebels because their father was a rebel. They were not caught up in what ended up consuming their father. Now, turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 9. And so these kids of Korah, very much like On, they refused to walk in their footsteps. I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not doing that. I know Dad did his thing, and I know that's a huge influence, can be a huge influence for positive, and these guys stood up for that, against that negative influence. And that's remarkable. You know, one of the things that Charity and I, we've talked about it a couple different times over this past week as we've been going through our One Thing reading plan. And I don't know if you guys are a part of it, but the church, just one chapter at a time, finding one thing in that chapter that God is speaking to us, that the men's groups are doing, the women's groups. I encourage you to be a part of it if you can. But one thing that we have talked about just in the morning as we've gone through this, as we're in 2 Chronicles, is all of these kings following in the footsteps of their wicked fathers. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to go that way. And we see here in 1 Chronicles 9, verse 19, that's what happened here. It's listing the gatekeepers. It says, verse 19, 1 Chronicles 9, Shalem, the son of Korah, the son of Ebiasaph, the son of Korah, and his brethren from his father's house, the Korahites, were in charge of the work of the service, gatekeepers of the tabernacle. Their fathers had been the keepers of the entrance to the camp of the Lord. This is so good. This is so great. I hope that in your mental notes and your physical notes that you're connecting these dots. I want you to turn now to Psalm 84 as we just continue to trace this family line a little bit. These children refuse to follow with and associate with the wickedness of their father, and that couldn't have been easy to have that kind of influence in their life, to stand against that. But they refuse to live in that rebellion. Then they go on to not only survive, their family becomes the family that's gatekeepers of the tabernacle. Now here's where it gets good. Psalm 84, notice the title of Psalm 84. To the chief musician on an instrument of Gath, a psalm of the sons of Korah. I love this so much, guys. Like, it almost brings me to tears. This is how the sons of Korah feel about the tabernacle. How they feel as we read Psalm 84. How they feel about the calling that God has for their life. Oh, is it the highest calling? Are they priests? No. No. But they don't have a response of dissatisfaction to their calling. They've got a response of worship. How lovely. How lovely is your tabernacle, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, yes, even faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for my own way. No, that's what Dad did. Cry out for the living God. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young. Even your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Verse 4, blessed are those who dwell in your house. They will still be praising you. They're not swallowed up. We just love your house, God. We love being there. It's become a home to us because that's where you are, and we want to be with you. And those who dwell with you there in your house, they're blessed. They're still praising you. They're not cut off. Now look at verse 10. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. I'm not clamoring. I'm not pushing for promotion. I don't want something else. I'm happy, Lord. I'm happy with the calling you have me. It's a beautiful calling. And they made this determination, these sons of Korah, all the way back in Numbers 16. This is enough, Lord, to be with you in your tabernacle. I don't need the leadership. I don't need to be on stage. I don't need the exaltation and the promotion. And I'm not worried about what title I might have or how important my ministry might seem to the congregation. Even if I can just hold the door open so those can come freely to worship God, that's better. That's better than harboring resentment. That's better than discontentment. It's better than rebellion. That's where my heart is. May it be true of us as well. That this place of praise could continue, Lord, that's enough for me. I don't need to be dissatisfied and discontent. I'd rather be a nobody than to see people worshiping you in the beauty of your holiness. So good. Love it. Maybe every time we read about the sons of Korah, remember this. Back to chapter 16. Korah, along with Dathan and Abiram, their families perished, swallowed up. Verse 34. I imagine this is true. All of Israel who were around them fled at their cry. They said, lest the earth swallow us up also. I've never seen anything. I'd run. Wouldn't you run if someone right next to you is swallowed up by the planet? Oh my goodness. But again, this bitterness, the damage has already been done. This root of bitterness has already caused people to be defiled. And so there's more consequences to be had. It says in verse 35, a fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering incense. These guys got more than they bargained for, and they lit their fire. And again, I imagine, as we look back, that the original question posed to Moses was kind of a religious question, that these guys could have very well been people who were on fire for the Lord, so to speak, that wanted to be in ministry. But in despising the ministry that God gave them, end up becoming burned up in ministry. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, to pick up the censers out of the blaze. This is one of the most wild scenes too. Pick the censers up out of the blaze, for they are holy, and scatter the fire some distance away. I'm sure this stunk. It's dirty. There's ashes. These guys are crispy critters at this point. And God says, but we can still use those instruments. Those are still holy, even if the people who lit them are not. They're still holy. And I was just reminded, and again, I don't have a lot of time. I've taken too long already tonight, but I'm reminded a little bit of some of those. We read about it all too often and see it on the news, of these pastors who have these inglorious failings in their ministry, and their whole life turns to ashes. But there's still a holy ministry there, and someone needs to go pick up the pieces afterwards. It's hard work he's doing right here. It's not pleasant, but it has to be done. So the Lord says, the censers of these men who sinned against their own souls, let them be made into hammered plates as a covering for the altar, because they presented them before the Lord. Therefore they are holy. They shall be a sign to the children of Israel. So God says, I want this to be a reminder that my callings, the calling I have for somebody, is not to be trifled with. It's not to be abandoned. It's not to be despised. It's not to be clamored for something else. I have my ways. That's what this is to remind people of. So Eleazar the priest took the bronze censers, which those who were burned up had presented, and they were hammered out as a covering on the altar to be a memorial to the children of Israel, that no outsider who is not a descendant of Aaron should come near to offer incense before the Lord, that he might not become like Korah and his companions, just as the Lord had said to him through Moses. And then again, so Eleazar, he's got to go in, he's got to take these out of the fire, then hammer them down to put on the altar. I imagine this is still taking place. Look at what it says next. The next day. There's no way you could do all that 250 in one day. He's probably still beating on these censers away. And the next day, the congregation of the children of Israel, I can't believe my eyes, complained against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You've killed the people of the Lord." Moses must have thought, all my troubles are in the dust right now. They're ashes right now. They're behind me. And now he's getting blamed for these folks who were burnt out in ministry. You've killed the people of the Lord. How someone could think that Moses, in some sort of David Blaine, David Copperfield type of way, opened up the planet Earth to swallow them is beyond me. But I don't think they really believed that. I don't think they really believed that Moses killed these people. I think that's their own rebellious heart speaking, that they have their own things that they need to work out before the Lord, and they're projecting it on Moses. Because, here's how I know they didn't really believe this. If you really thought that Moses supernaturally caused Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and those guys' families to be swallowed up, and you really thought that fire came from the heavens and consumed these 250 people for complaining, Do you think you would complain to Moses at that time? No. No, I would have yes, sir, whatever you want, sir. Now it happened when the congregation had gathered against Moses and Aaron that they turned towards the tabernacle of meeting, and suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron came before the tabernacle of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces again, just this intercession that's taking place. With these guys, you wonder why Moses even got up from his face. But Moses said to Aaron, "Take a censer and put fire in it from the altar, put incense on it, and take it quickly to the congregation to make atonement for them. For wrath has gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun." Verse 47, then Aaron took it as Moses commanded and ran into the midst of the assembly. And already the plague had begun among the people, so he put the incense and made atonement for the people. And he stood, I love this verse 48, he stood between the dead and the living, so the plague was stopped. Whew, this had to take some courage by Aaron. These people are dying from this plague, and you run out in the midst of them. You stand between the dead and the living. But guys, we need to understand that's your calling. That's my calling. Not to stand back, point fingers. Look what those guys did. They're getting what they deserve. Wait for God to consume them. It's to stand between the living and the dead. And there's to be an urgency. I hope you caught that. There's to be an urgency here. Moses said it quickly. Verse 47, Aaron received this command and ran out to them. Okay, Aaron is the older brother of Moses. He's probably close to 100 years old here, running out there. We live in a place that people who are infected by the plague are dying and perishing, and we need to run. We need to offer incense as a picture of prayer throughout Scripture. We need to be those who are quick to intercede, being faithful in doing it so the people stop perishing. When it was all said and done, verse 49, we're going to get through chapter 17. You just watch. When it was all said and done, verse 49 of chapter 16, now those who died in the plague were 14,700, besides those who died in the Korah incident. So Aaron returned to Moses at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, for the plague had stopped. And then this picks up right from there in chapter 17, and it's his choice. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and get from them a rod from each father's house, all the leaders according to their father's houses, 12 rods. Write each man's name on his rod, and you shall write Aaron's name on the rod of Levi. For there shall be one rod for the head of each father's house." Okay, get your family's rod, a picture of authority, guidance, correction. Every tribal leader is to put their name on it. Verse 4, then you shall place them in the tabernacle of meeting before the testimony where I met with you, and it shall be that the rod of the man whom I choose will blossom. Thus I will rid myself of the complaints of the children of Israel, which they make against you. This is how I'm going to differentiate, between, and if anybody ever wonders about who the leadership is again, I'm going to let them know who I'm behind, who I have called to this place, regardless of any past sin that he may have been caught up within the golden calf. That's irregardless of what you might think about him. This is who I have called. And this test is fruitfulness. It's these dead rods blossoming. And that is always an unmistakable proof of leadership. The test isn't going to be gather them all together and see who the best speaker is, Moses. See who can go in and trim the wicks of the menorah the best. No, not who can bake the best showbread. Just, oh, that's good, man. You must be in leadership. You must be the man. No, it's who and where is their fruit, and that is still the proof of leadership and ministry. Verse 6, his confirmation. So Moses spoke to the children of Israel, and each of their leaders gave him a rod apiece for each leader according to the father's house, 12 rods. And the rod of Aaron was among their rods. And Moses placed the rods before the Lord in the tabernacle of witness. Just kind of plants these they're walking staffs. Half of these have probably been dead for years. And he just kind of plants them there in the dirt before the Lord. And it came to pass the next day, Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds, had produced blossoms, and yielded ripe almonds. The test back in verse 5 was blossoms. God says, oh, over and abundantly. No, it's not just sprouted, buds, blossoms, not just fruit, ripe fruit. Moses brought, verse 9, all the rods out from before the Lord to all the children of Israel, and they looked, and each man took his rod. It's kind of a funny picture. So we have this rod here. It's got this name on it. No fruit. Whose is it? It's my rod. And they all took it. They'll go home. Verse 10, there's continuing reminder. The Lord said to Moses, bring Aaron's rod back before the testimony to be kept as a sign against the rebels, that you may put their complaints away from me, lest they die. Thus did Moses, just as the Lord commanded him, so he did. Again, it became part of what was placed within the Ark of the Covenant. All reminders of God's goodness and faithfulness. The manna, they complained, nothing to eat. Put a jar of manna in there. The 10 Commandments, broken immediately with the golden calf. That's in the Ark of the Covenant. The rod of Aaron. Well, the only reason there is a budding rod of Aaron is because people complained against the leadership of God. Each one of the items in the ark, but what's on the cover? The mercy seat. Where's the blood shed? On the mercy seat. God doesn't see the brokenness inside. Now, I wanted to share something. Oh, I still have a verse left, don't I? So the children of Israel spoke to Moses, saying, surely we die, we perish, we all perish. Whoever even comes near the tabernacle of the Lord must die. Shall we all utterly die? Now, I wish, as they have this realization of their own guilt, that this is the end of their complaining. It's not. In chapter 20, they're going to say, you're not going to believe this, they're going to say, I wish I died back in chapter 16. I wish I was part of that plague back then. That would have been nice, But I want to come back quickly in these last couple minutes that we have and just share a little bit of a personal story that when it comes to the calling that God has on us and how that is, it has to be the calling that God, and he has a calling for each of you, okay? The calling that he has on us and how that comes with and is always paired with denying ambition and just letting God lead. And so this is actually something that just happened to me today, where I had kind of the opportunity, I did. I had the opportunity to let God do what he wants to do, or I had the opportunity to see if I was going to get in the way of that because of my own flesh and just desiring something that God hasn't called me to. Okay, so I went to school with this guy in high school named Rod, and we were not super close in school. We were very different. He was into books and studying, and I was into not books and studying. And so I hadn't seen him since the day we graduated. This 30 some years ago. And he was suggested as a friend on Facebook a while back. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I find out that he's now a doctor in Tyler, Texas. And I'm like, well, that's appropriate. He seemed like he could be a doctor. There's some people like that just fits, right? And so he's a family practitioner, but he specializes in sports medicine. And that's really all I know. That's what's on Facebook. He doesn't post all that much. But he did post on Monday, and he said that he was part of this organization when it comes to sports medicine, this national organization, pretty large thing called the American Medical Society of Sports Medicine. Now, to me, that sounds redundant. It's the American Medical Society of Sports Medicine, but he's the smart one, not me. So, but they have an annual conference that's coming up, and it's in Seattle. And his part in this organization, this big national thing, is that they're going to have a chapel. And he needed to find a speaker, and he thought he had one, and the plan fell through. And so he had posted Monday, man, just that, man, I have this big thing. It's at the convention center in Seattle, and I need a chapel speaker. And so I messaged him, and I'm like, hey, I could maybe be available for that, you know? And so I did that Monday night, and he watched apparently a couple of the messages from, you know, our fellowship, the church, and then he messaged me last night, and he said, man, I'd love to have you. Could you come and you do this? And it's Wednesday morning on April 29th. It's at 7 a.m. I'll put you up in a hotel and buy you whatever you need. Just, you know, get over here and do it at the convention center. And, you know, this is a pretty big national thing. The conference is on world leadership. And I said, well, let me just make sure that's going to work. But honestly, I was like pretty stoked that I got this opportunity. And right as he had invited me, Pastor Jeff had been texting me about some other stuff. And I'm like, man, could you pray about this? Like, I just got invited, you know, this opportunity just came my way. And in my mind, really, it was like, yeah, pray about this. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. You know, that's kind of the attitude that I had, right? And Jeff messaged back, and he's like, man, I looked that up. Everybody's got way too many initials after their name. And I'm like, I know, right? But as I sat on it, and I just let the Lord speak to me, and I got my ego out of the way, and just really let the Lord speak what he needed to me. One of the things that I would have had to move around to make this possible is on April 29th, I'm supposed to be doing the chapel for the Christian school right here in Ellensburg. And I thought, well, I can find someone to do the chapel at the Christian school. And so I can speak to these doctors with all these long initials after their name, so I can do that chapel. And the Lord said, I already called you to do a chapel. Why are you saying the chapel I called you to isn't good enough? Why do you need to do that chapel? It's like, oh, you got me, Lord. Like, that's right there. And so I messaged him back, and I said, thank you so much for the invitation. God is just not giving me a peace about this. But you know what? I think I can help you. There's this guy in our church that's really great at networking. He knows all sorts of people in Christian leadership and ministry. Some of you guys might know Chris Goff. And so I messaged Chris Goff, and I know that Chris really wasn't going to be available either, but I also know he knows everybody, right? He ends up getting this guy. Maybe you've heard of him. His name is Jesse Bradley. He's a former athlete himself, professional soccer player. He has a church in Auburn, a big church that he pastors, but he is also the chaplain for the Sounders. He's been on talk shows. Like, he is just an evangelist heart, and he agreed to do it. And so even though I wanted that opportunity, I wanted to speak to all those people with all those impressive titles and names. Honestly, today, getting this guy to go do that, this is a sports medicine conference. This guy is a former athlete and a pastor. And God made it work out the best possible way. And I found more joy in that I wasn't doing it than if I did. And so I'm not saying that I'm always perfect at this. My encouragement is just trust God. He has his ways in which he does things, and it always turns out the best. And we do not have to clamor. And he's doing the chapel he's supposed to do, and I'm going to end up on that Wednesday doing the chapel that I'm supposed to do. So let's stand and let's pray.